Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and this week I'm going to be having a look at Mythwind. This was a review copy sent to me by Open Owl Studios of a cozy game. So let's see what it looks like. Alright, so now for a very quick tour of Mythwind. I mentioned in the little blurb, this is a cozy game. So basically this is a game that doesn't actually have a win condition. It's just a game where you play one of 4 asymmetrical characters. There's a 5th character if you have the expansion, which I do not. And you basically try to meet a goal each game. There's like little mild consequences or nice little bonuses if you do manage to succeed at the goal. You build up your town and you just try to become a more profitable and successful version of whichever character you're playing. But this game has rotating seasons. You just can play through as many seasons as you want. This board will grow and change with time. And you're going to be pulling event and adventure cards that help with that. So basically, just in general, each day is divided into dawn, daytime, and then dusk. At dawn, you do things like draw weather cards, see what the weather's going to mean for you today. If the weather shows up in particular patterns, then different effects might occur. But basically, you do some dawn setup. Then in the daytime, each of your characters, or just one if you're playing solo, you can play this true solo, and you can play it as any character. You can swap them in and out, which is pretty nice. You spend part of your daytime in town, so you do a town action. So these different spaces are different actions that you're able to do. So you can do things like go adventuring and pull an adventure card. You can decide to construct one of these buildings if you're able to pay the cost, and you're able to clear the land so that there's room for those buildings when they hit the top of the construction queue. There are also individual actions that you're going to do on each of your player boards. I'm going to talk really briefly about each of the characters, but you essentially have totally different personal actions that you can perform, and you can get workers as one of your town actions to help you do more of those. So there's stuff that you do in the town, and then there's stuff that you do individually. So the crafter is going to basically take requests and get raw materials to attempt to build, refine, and sell crafts. The ranger spends a lot of his time not even in town. He goes on these little adventures that sometimes lead to interesting results. You've got the merchant who is trying to stockpile goods and then buy and sell them at good prices so the market will fluctuate. There are also some rival cards that mess with you when you try to be the merchant, so you have to be careful because it's not just you out there trying to sell and get your profits. And then you also have the farmer, who's pretty fun. They've got this polyomino board essentially here where you are planting crops and you're trying to do it in really efficient ways out on this board so you can sell them. Also, I don't want to break into everything, but all the pieces for all of these are stored basically in these trays, which is really nice. And then you actually have some dice slots over here. So depending on whether you're allied with these sprites, one of the premises of this game is that the town you're building is surrounded by them, or with the townspeople, that kind of impacts what kind of actions you're able to take. So you've got like a little array of things that you can do each turn. And then there's kind of like a dusk phase where you clean everything up. And that's really it. The game is super simple. It's a mixture between playing your own little small game on your own board, growing your town, and also kind of hitting story beats. So as I just mentioned, the town is being built in a place where there are little fairy creatures called sprites who have different feelings about you, kind of depending on things that happen throughout the story. Honestly, everything is pretty low stakes, but different actions you take are going to align you with either the sprites or with the townspeople. Like at various turns, you can switch back and forth very easily. And there's just like little things that happen to kind of get you deeper into the story of the town and of its relationship with the sprites in the surrounding woods. And without going into too much further detail, that is that. This is a game that, again, there's no win or loss condition. There's no end game. So basically, whatever condition your town's in, you can just show up, set it up, play a couple seasons, play as any character that you want, and you can continue to revisit this world that you've been working on and keep working at it as often as you like with no actual conclusion. So if you find this game experience cozy, you can just kind of keep building in and building up. So with that said, let's go ahead and have some final thoughts. All right, so now for some final thoughts. I was not totally sure how I was going to respond to Mythwind when it was sent to me, because on the one hand, I really, really love cozy games. I love cozy video games. And on the other hand, I've struggled with kind of story-driven board games in the past. So I wanted to know if this one would be different. TLDR, it's really not. But let's talk a little bit more about why that is. So for cozy games, I really do like cozy games on my Switch and on my PC. So I love things like Animal Crossing. I love things like, I really liked Wildflowers in the last couple of years. And I generally love visual novels, games that are very much about story, games that are low stakes. I also love to read cozy fantasy, so Legends and Lattes and Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree were among some of my favorite couple books of the last year. So when I took Mythwind, there was definitely a chance that I was really going to like it. But as a board game, I just don't really think it's that exciting. There are also going to be people who really disagree with me. So first things first, the good. It is very clear that Mythwind is a well thought out, beloved, just carefully crafted and packaged game. Everything from the character trays and how they all fit together to the art and the different little rule books and the way that everything's organized. This is a game that was made by people who really did want you to play it and get it out again and again and again, play it again and again and again, and feel cozy while you play it. However, it just didn't quite work for me. Part of it is that I liked that the different characters play very differently. However, I didn't actually find any single character's gameplay compelling enough to make me want to keep playing and playing and playing this game with no end in sight. So I didn't get enough satisfaction out of, for example, being a successful farmer, even though the polyominoes are fun, to want to be the farmer for season after season. I was interested in the markets as the merchant for the first couple of times, and then I stopped caring about the market. As my town grew, I didn't really feel more invested in the town. I was just kind of like, oh, this is interesting, but when's it going to get like really interesting? And I felt like my character arcs never crossed. It's very much like everybody's in their own corner of the town doing their own thing, and I can see why it would be that way because you wanted to offer these different playing experiences, but I kind of feel like it would have been more exciting to be able to do something like run 2 characters as a solo player, but have those characters do things that actually impacted each other on the board. And so that attempt to kind of create a cozy environment to be in, I really respect, and I can see where this game was going as it tried to create that. I also think that it missed some opportunities that might have been more difficult, I think, to create design-wise, but that would have really made the game pop, which would have been things like make it feel like stuff that you did left more of a unique mark on the town. Make it so that playing as one character, you're really picking up from something that another character did other than like a building that got built. And so I really feel like there were some missed opportunities to have more of a storyline that was actually interesting and more something to work towards that didn't just feel like you kind of sat down and did the same thing every time with some minor variations. And, you know, it's also fair to say, like, I generally have a hard time with, like, story board games. Didn't like Sleeping Gods. I thought that Lands of Galzier was okay, but it didn't quite do it for me. That said, I will say I think that if you're looking for a relaxing experience where you go around and things happen, I actually think that Lands of Galzier is still tops of this genre for me personally, somebody who's not a devotee. And I guess I'm always hoping for the one that's going to be different, and I thought that Mythwind might be, but then it wasn't. It's just another one of those games where if you like that kind of emergent storyline, you can get really into it, then I can see you really enjoying it. But I just kind of felt like it was working real hard to give me not a whole lot of story on drip. Like the setup where humans are working with sprites, potentially interesting, ultimately pretty predictable, and not that interesting. So if you really like the mini games for this and you just want to try all the different characters out, I can see you having fun with this game for a while. But this idea of a town that's like almost a living, breathing thing that you leave and then you come back and you leave and then you come back and you can just keep it going forever and ever and ever, that would be more compelling if the game were more compelling. I do like that so many games now, including one that's as well produced and as mainstream as this, are playing with the idea of no real victory or loss condition. I mean, there are goals in this game, but, you know, there's just a consequence if you don't meet the goal for your play session. It doesn't end the session. So I like that we're playing with that a bit more. You know, Amabel Holland from Holland Spiel has been really messing around with what is the importance of a victory condition and what does a game without victory conditions look like and how can games exist as feelings or experiences or, you know, immersive events as opposed to something that has just a set win-loss. I am really good with games experimenting with that. I don't have a problem with Mythwind not having a win condition. I actually think that that's potentially very interesting. But even without a win condition, I need to feel like I'm going somewhere. And I think that that's sort of the problem with this game. Like, I never really felt like the things that I was doing were going anywhere interesting. It was like a little cruise, like a pretty pasture. And then I was done and I wanted to go home and I didn't want to go back. And so I think that a lot of love went into this game. There's a lot of thought that went into this game. There are going to be people who absolutely love this gaming experience. But it wasn't for me. And it wasn't for me because... Not because it doesn't have combat, because I actually think that's cool. I think there should be more games without combat. Not because it doesn't have a win condition. I'm fully willing to experiment with that. And not because it has asymmetrical play, because I think it has a lot of potential. I think it's because things didn't like fully come together in a way that made me feel committed to this world enough to keep coming back. And because the sense of progression in this game wasn't really satisfying to a point where I felt like I was actually building anything. I needed more attachment and more investment for this premise to work. And instead, I felt like I had some relatively amusing mini games. And, I checked out the different characters. It was fine. But it was fine. And if you want me to keep coming back and back and back with no win condition and with, the idea that I'm going to come back and be cozy and have a relaxing time and want to revisit this world, I just need a bit more than that. So that's how I feel about Mythwind. I know it's hot right now. Everybody's covering it. They must have sent review copies to a lot of people because these videos are everywhere. But that's where I'm at on it. It's probably not a huge surprise. But, I'm just going to keep trying these and hope that somebody's going to get a story game right for me at some point. Because I believe that it'll happen. It's just not this one. That said, it's lovingly made. It's a beautiful product. I'm sure that there will be people who really get a lot out of it. But if your tastes align with mine, that's probably not you. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, support me on Patreon to help the channel. And most of all, happy gaming.